Welcome to Brainstorium. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dream punk and deeply weird fantasy author. And yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 98 of Brainstorium. One of the movies I watched over the holidays was The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and we ended up watching the sequel as well because they're just so lovely and funny and uplifting, and we were in the mood for something gentle, though they're not exactly Christmas movies. But between the two of them, there are so many enlightened quotes that felt relevant to me and to the writer's journey, or any life journey, I suppose. A couple of really poignant ones are spoken by Judi Dench's character, who says, "The only real failure is the failure to try," which is so true. I mean, that on its own is fridge door worthy. But the one that really made me sit up was in the second film, when she says, "Sometimes it seems to me that the difference between what we want and what we fear is the width of an eyelash." This felt pertinent to me and sort of underlined something I'd been thinking about lately, about putting myself out there as a writer. Just before Christmas, I got an email that I almost missed, asking me if I still wanted to do a 10-minute reading of one of my stories in front of an online audience for the British Fantasy Society. It took me a moment because I'd signed up for this thing so many months ago, I'd forgotten all about it. But my initial gut response was anxiety. And I found myself thinking, I don't really want that hassle. I mean, it's the middle of winter. I'm hunkering down. I just need to recuperate. Why couldn't they have done this when in summer when I've got more energy? There were, of course, other thoughts underneath these ones, like, I hate being on camera. It's so nerve-wracking. What if I stumble over my words and I look like a twit? And it's part of an event full of writers who are loads better than me, and so on. It would have been easy to give in to these worries and just say no. But after putting it off for a few days, I replied and said, yes, I'd love to do it, because I knew that logically I can do this. And I'd obviously wanted to when the offer first appeared, otherwise I wouldn't have applied for it. Also, logically, I recognised that this was a great opportunity and I should not let nerves or self-doubt steal that away from me. And this quote from The Second Best Exotic Marigold Hotel reminded me why on the bigger scale. What we want most deeply, most desperately, is necessarily bound up with fear. Because if you really want something, then there's a lot at stake and failure is always possible. Just in the trying, just in the attempt, we put ourselves and what we desire on the line. We expose our vulnerability to other people, including complete strangers. But this is something we have to do if we want that chance to get somewhere. Though this was just one event, I'm not expecting it to be life-changing, there was something about this invitation that gave me the deer in the headlights moment where I hesitated because I didn't quite feel up to it right then. But also, something that life experience has taught me is that it doesn't matter if you're not in the mood for something when you sign up for it. That just makes it more likely that you'll be in the mood or be able to get yourself into the mood when the event actually takes place. Think about it. There's no point being in the mood for something when it's not happening yet. So save your in the mood moment for when you get there. Marketing in all its many shapes and forms is difficult for all of us as writers and craftspeople who create on their own, away from prying eyes. First, we've got to just mentally leave a door open to it, and then sometimes we have to step through that door outside our comfort zone. Be discoverable. Put your writing and who you are as a writer out there. That doesn't mean that all opportunities are going to be right for you and that you should ignore your instincts. Just listen harder to your gut reaction and be honest with yourself as to why you're feeling that way. Are you frightened of embarrassing yourself? Because people like people who are down to earth and who aren't perfect. So that can work in your favour if you embrace it a little bit. Are you worried that you might be surrounded by writers who are better than you? We are always going to feel that. Comparisonitis is a bug we may never recover from. Don't wait for the feeling to go away, because it probably won't. The difference is, the power is when you take action to do the thing anyway and put yourself forward. Well, in the end, the British Fantasy Society event was amazing, and I feel foolish for even hesitating to take part. Seriously. As it happened, one of the other authors who was supposed to tell a story as well was unable to come, so my slot began slightly earlier than scheduled, and I ended up with more time for Q&A. And I loved every minute. I read out an edited version of A Storm Brews, which I drafted back in episode 87. I tried to really be the scary old lady tea shop owner as I read it, as it's written in first person. I had plenty to talk about afterwards, as I was basically introducing what I do on this show, and how I also get to share incredible fiction by other authors as part of the process. And the rest of the event, I wasn't able to go to all of it, but it was a whole day, 8 hours worth of content entitled The Creative Fix, Social Justice Through Writing. There were fascinating panel discussions around social justice and how to bring concepts around that into fantasy fiction. Other writers read out their fiction, and there was an interview with Philip Reeve, who wrote the Mortal Engines Quartet. That's when I started to really blush that I was involved in an event where an internationally renowned author was speaking. If you'd like to watch the event, it is free for British Fantasy Society members. If you're not a member, you can access the event on their website shop for a very modest fee. I mean, it's like a day-long fantasy fiction convention, in effect, and they're charging a mere £2.50 to view all of it. About the price of a cup of coffee, I suppose. A cut version of just my storytelling with the discussion afterwards will be available soon. I will either link it or embed it on my website somewhere. And during the next week, I will update the Brainstorium show notes to include that link so you know where to find it once I've worked out where to put it. But in the meantime, if you'd like to see the entire event now, then the link to that on the British Fantasy Society's website will be in the show notes right now. Speaking of discoverability and putting yourself out there, I'm excited to share with you the amazing stories that my very talented listeners have written in with. And I must say, I was really blown away this time. It was quiet in the last show on the story submission front because of the Christmas break, but the sheer range of stories I received this time absolutely makes up for that. So I hope you're sitting comfortably. Dee Krause responded to The Quivering Nightmare, which was a prompt from the Christmas show, with this brief interpretation. Formless, hidden in the shadows, a jelly or smoke or something boneless that quivers in hate coming for me. Ah, this is eerie. It kind of sums up something that's both abstract and tangible feeling at the same time. Not quite sure how you did that. Thank you, Dee. You can find Dee Krause, who writes horror and fantasy, at dustyskull.com. That is one hell of a URL. Paul Macmillan wrote a story based on the ghostly outline of the freakish reader, which came up in the last show. He wrote, "They whisper about the ghostly outline of the freakish reader in the drowned quarter of Atropy, a place where buildings lean like broken teeth and the fog tastes like old secrets. Some say he's a librarian who refused to die, while others claim he is what happens when a person reads the same cursed book too many times. Rin goes looking for him after her father returns from the quarter with his eyes gone dark and his voice speaking in borrowed sentences. She follows the trail to a flooded archive where books float like corpses. The reader appears pale and shimmering, as if sketched in wet charcoal. He cradles a book that hums like a heart. Rin demands answers, and he simply opens the cover. Her father's voice pours out, begging her to run, while another voice, a cold, ancient one, invites her to stay and know everything. Rin grabs the book and hurls it into the water, and the archive screams. The ghost lunges after it, dissolving as he sinks. The water stills, and the voices fade, but when Rin races home, her father stands waiting, eyes glowing ink black, and he says her name in both voices. Wow, this is so evocative, with so much vivid imagery and ideas, and the descriptions are just fantastic. I feel like I've just stepped into a movie. Amazing. Thank you, Paul. Paul Macmillan writes fantasy fiction, and you can find him on social media as Bookmarks, Love and Lore. Jenny Thorne wrote a chilling piece of flash fiction, also based on the ghostly outline of the freakish reader, but be warned, this one is scary. It's called The Follower. You develop a sense for this sort of thing. When their profile pictures are something random, that's usually the first warning. The comments start off gentle, kind, but somehow you get a feeling. You know they will escalate. I should have known better than to interact at all, but I was rushing. All it took was one heart, as if tapping that icon switched on his crazy and switched off my life. Hey there, I'm your most devoted reader. I've got all your books, even the rubbish feminist one. Then, I saw you shopping today, sexy. I like your red scarf, sexy. It matched your lips. Then, hey, sexy, why didn't you talk to me? You think you're too good for me? Then, I'm going to teach you a lesson. I will see you soon, sexy. The police said they would trace him and caution him. They assured me it usually did the trick. Unconvinced, I decided it would be better to get away. I thought I'd be safer at my parents' cottage for a while. Then, Mum and Dad can't save you, sexy. I can see the ghost of his hulking, freakish, wild-haired outline silhouetted against the snowy lawn. The axe from the shed swings in his hand as he lurches towards what I am now realising is a very delicate 17th century front door. I don't think the heavy curtain will protect us from him like it does from drafts. I've called the police. I hope they get here in time. Whoa, this is super chilling. I like how it switches between external action and words read online, so it sort of weaves in the psychological elements and the guesswork. Sweet talk that turns to threats with the final physical appearance of the stranger. Thank you, Jenny. You can find Jenny Thorne, who usually writes poems, on Blue Sky as Jen Thorne, and there's an E at the end of Thorn. Nick Vrakar was also inspired by the ghostly outline of the freakish reader. Eva had filled the old house with cameras, the best money could buy, but there was a fault in the system. The camera she had set up in the library was on the fritz. She considered returning it. She opened it, tooled around with it, closed it back up. The image on the viewfinder flickered rapidly at times, then almost unnoticeable at others. She switched through its settings, cycling from the normal vision to night vision, and then to its electromagnetic spectrum reader. The image on the viewfinder blinked on. She spun the camera around on its tripod, and it now pointed at the window overlooking the grounds. The image on the viewfinder shimmered again, and as it did, there was an outline of a woman standing by the window, then gone. Eva barely noticed it, but she knew she had. The image flickered again, and the outline reappeared and disappeared with it. The image flickered faster and faster, and the outline of the woman remained longer and longer, standing at the window, her shoulders slumped, her head tilted as she turned to look at Eva. "Ooh, this is spooky. Is this a zombie or a spirit or a demon? And what happens next?" Another completely different interpretation of the freakish reader prompt. Thank you, Nick. You can find Nick Vrakar's short stories and articles at nvrakar.wordpress.com. Paul Monteith also wrote a piece on the ghostly outline of the freakish reader. A hard rain peppered the library windows, and thunder shook the building. Lightning had knocked out the fluorescence, leaving only the low yellow glow of the sodium emergency lighting to illuminate the library. A librarian watched as a lean young man exited the paranormal section with several books. It was the man's gait that caught her attention. He didn't seem to be walking at all. Instead, the man seemed to glide across the room to the reading table. At the table, he sorted through his selection. See the Ghost, Be the Ghost, The Grapes of Wraith, and Ghosting for Dummies. The librarian was captivated by the book titles and his appearance. His jet black hair contrasted with his mausoleum white skin. His clothes, hanging loosely on his bone-thin frame, made him look as wasted as a desiccated corpse. His sunken green eyes and bony finger followed a line of text on the page. At intervals, something he read made his black lips curl into a wicked smile, and he would nod as if agreeing with the text, which made his stone ankh earrings sway. Perhaps it was the low lighting, but as the librarian watched the man, it became more difficult to focus on him. He was fading away into nothingness. He became as transparent as his subject matter on ghosts, until he was only an outline. The light bent around him until there were only the contours of a form where once had been a living soul. Ooh, I love the descriptions in this one, and we are right there with the librarian's fascination and the way he just fades from view. I think I'd be nervous to pick up the books after that in case they have anything to do with his fading away. Is that just me? Thank you for your story, Paul. You can find Paul Monteith on Blue Sky as Quantum Fairy. Sophie de Soles wrote in with a story based on the entire Exquisite Corpse, which was The Mediocre Scholar Saw the Ghostly Outline of the Freakish Reader. She said, "For me, Freakish Reader is a necromancer who can use books to communicate with dead authors, including one mediocre scholar." The great Professor Archmortis yawned. She had been sitting in the dark of her office for hours, and her back was aching. Caressing the soft parchment on which she had spent the day writing her treatise of the dark art, she read the last paragraph of today's chapter and jotted down a conclusion. If all the above have failed, sacrifice a kid to the devouring fire. She paused. She knew she had read this somewhere. She considered searching for the reference, but her candle was almost out, and those who did not know this simple trick had no business reading her book. As she put down her pen, a shadow passed over the page. The professor knew not to dismiss such an apparition as a trick of the mind. Closing her eyes and focusing outwards, she recognized the pull of a thaumaturgic invocation. Someone was calling her through her manuscript. She quickly dismissed the uncomfortable thought that, for someone to reach her in this way, she had to be dead. Leaning closer to her page, she tried to bring the shadow in focus. Under the trembling light of the candle, the dim face emerged. The professor held her breath. What were this caller's intentions? She reassured herself. Most probably they were a reader coming to seek the darkness of her advice. The face became clearer. It breathed in deeply and screamed, "Write down your light blessed sources, you twit. Do you mean a goat or a human kid?" That's just brilliant. I love this twist at the end. A part of what makes this funny is the release on the built-up tension, because there's that touch of fear earlier on at the possibility that the professor might be dead. Thank you, Sophie Desolis, for sharing this amazing story. Right, well, it is time to reach deep into our imaginations once more, a journey which begins with the Socks of Destiny. That's right, the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse mixes words and phrases from different players to create a sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. So it will make grammatical sense, but whether or not it will make any other sense is up to us. Some of them can make incredible writing prompts, but it really is up to the power of our imaginations to tease out these ideas. So it is with some trepidation that I reach into the describing word sock for our first word. This is from Bargy. Welcome to the game, Bargy. Excited is our first word. So who or what was excited? Our next word is from Paul Monteith, who is Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky. Phoenix. Okay, let's see what lies for us in the action sock for this excited phoenix. This is from Wendy. I can unfold it. Violently jolted with a diabolical shift. Ooh, violent movements and a diabolical shift. So what is that, a shift in the storyline, or something has perhaps changed this Phoenix character? Our next word is again from Paul Monteith, Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky. Expansive. Okay, so it feels more like a place than a person, but we'll see. It all depends on what comes next. Oops. Let's get this one out of the sock. This is from Paul Benfield. Ooh, lantern. An expansive lantern. Right, so altogether we have the excited phoenix violently jolted with a diabolical shift at the expansive lantern. Initially, I can't help but feel fascinated by this concept of an expansive lantern. What does that mean? I feel like, does it grow, or does the light expand further than you'd expect? But looking back to the beginning, this excited phoenix, I did look up phoenix. I often look up words that I already know the meaning of, just in case there's something else in the origins of the word or some other meaning that I've overlooked. And a phoenix can mean a person who is uniquely remarkable in one respect. So the excited phoenix violently jolted with a diabolical shift at the expansive lantern. This is very weird. I feel like there's quite a lot going on here. For this shift, this reaction to happen, there's something in the phoenix's mind or in the world that they occupy that makes an expansive lantern illegal, diabolical, or brings back horrific memories for this person. And if they were an apprentice, because I'm thinking along the lines of they've got special skill, if they're some sort of apprentice, I wonder if this would be a magic or skill to do with light, in which case the lantern represents, or just is, a crude version or an illegal version of some awful magic. I want to say dark magic, but this is becoming weirdly paradoxical if we're talking about a lantern that casts light. Curiouser and curiouser. Still, it makes me wonder even more about the nature of this craft or the skill that the so-called phoenix has around light. What could this be? And what if these are lanterns that can reveal the truth about a person, or throw light on, literally and metaphorically, on some hidden secret, so it could be used as a form of interrogation? And now I'm imagining a world that's fraught with political tensions and various clandestine crafts or skills are kind of popping up all over the place. There are people on different sides of the fence who are working against each other and developing these different forms of magic to try and, get at the enemy. And maybe in a world shrouded in darkness, the person who can make changes possible, even if they might involve a violent jolt or a diabolical shift, is someone who works with revealing the truth, who's someone who works with light that can reveal the truth. Oh, this is it's feeling very deep very quickly. So I think it's time to move on to the next exquisite corpse. So our next opening word is from Paul Monteith, Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky. Congealing. Okay, well I hope this next one is a substance, because that makes sense. Has anyone used the word soup? Probably not. The next word is from Sean, known as Blue Wizard Facts on X. Hedgehog. Oh no, that's horrible. A congealing hedgehog? That's kind of gross. So let's just see what comes next. Oops, I'm looking in the wrong sock. I need the action sock at this stage in the game. Let's see. Reaching right down, we have an action from Paul Benfield. Cast long shadows over. Actually, that's odd because our last one was about darkness and shadow, wasn't it? So our next describing word is from, if I can just unfold it, this is from Paul Thomas. Ooh, Rabelaisian. Rabelaisian? So that's displaying earthy or bawdy humour. feel like we're in a pub or a tavern now, which is just a strange place to go if you're a congealing hedgehog. Or not, if you are unfortunately on the menu. So, let's see. Oh gosh. Oh, another one from Paul Monteith again. Guru. Right. So altogether, okay, we can find a way. We have the congealing hedgehog cast long shadows over the revelation, I do not know how to pronounce this, so that's having an earthy or bawdy humour. Guru. A guru with a bawdy humour. There are so many things that are wrong, but sometimes things that are wrong and seem self-contradictory are useful for story ideas because conflict is the birth of story, am I right? Well, I think I need some green tea before I go any further with any of this. It should be brewed by now. Okay. Let's have a think about this. Congealing hedgehog? I mean, setting aside how gross that sounds and unlikely, what bothers me is that it casts long shadows. It must be very large and tall. This is not an ordinary hedgehog, even if it's not congealed. And thinking about the guru, I feel like this has to be a pretend guru or someone with a nickname guru, because you wouldn't expect an actual spiritual guide, a deeply wise person who advises people on spiritual matters to have a bawdy humour. Unless they've been keeping this under wraps for many years. They've been keeping this trait under control their whole lives, and it's finally bursting out of them. That alone could be an interesting character idea to explore. Anyone living through a contradiction like that. But let's think about this. I mean, the bawdy humour part really makes me think this has to be in a pub or a tavern. But I guess it could be a theatre, like maybe not a highbrow theatre, a pantomime or something fun and silly is on. But for this hedgehog person, a prickly personality, threatening this person, asking them to leave, what's congealing about this hedgehog? Oh, it could mean that they make other things congeal. So they're not themselves congealing. Oh, that is a nasty power to have. If this person can cause your insides to congeal, no wonder this retired or fake guru is terrified of them. He just wants to keep his insides intact. Okay, so there's sort of murmurs of possibilities within this if you root around, but in itself it is entirely bonkers. So I'm going to reach for the first word of our next and final exquisite corpse. This is from Meg. Terrible. So what or who was terrible? See, oh, this is once more Paul Monteith, Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky. You're definitely leading the games today. Koala. What makes a terrible koala? Well, there's a question. Our action is from, if I can just pull this off my finger, from Paul Thomas, was hidden underneath. What? I've got this bizarre image of a Christmas present hidden underneath the tree. I don't know. So next word, oh goodness, once again from Paul Monteith. Dazzling. Could still be a Christmas tree. Oh goodness. Our final word has got to be from, they're just getting caught on my fingers now. This is from Wendy. Writer. Oh, a dazzling writer. No. Okay, this is like really, really weird. You thought the other ones were weird? This is weird. The terrible koala was hidden underneath the dazzling writer. How can this be? My first impression was a dodgy soft toy, a possessed soft toy koala hidden underneath the Christmas tree, waiting to be opened by an unsuspecting child who has no idea that those plastic googly eyes will haunt them at night like two tiny moons glowing in the dark of their bedroom. But no, this terrible koala was hidden underneath the dazzling writer. I mean, the only way I can see this working practically is if this were an idea that the writer has set aside, kind of buried deep within their subconscious. It's just so ridiculous. So it's an idea that they've chosen not to use, an idea so dreadful that they decided they must never even mention it to their writer friends or their publisher. But why? Let me look at this. I've looked up koalas, okay, on my tablet. They are solitary, sleepy, tree-dwelling marsupials known for their cuddly appearance. Oh, but are actually wild animals with sharp claws. Adapted to a diet of toxic eucalyptus leaves, which they digest thanks to specialised gut bacteria, leading them to rest up to 20 hours a day. Terrifying. But then there are the claws, right? So this writer has a burning desire to write a story about a koala that turns evil, that goes on the rampage with those sharp claws. But only for 4 hours a day because it's got to sleep so much. Is this as unlikely as a bawdy, humoured guru? Well, possibly. And if this is a dazzling writer, well, they have a reputation to keep up. Maybe this is just a case of someone with literary greatness wanting to dabble in weird horror. But to make a story out of this ridiculous, exquisite corpse, maybe this dazzling writer needs to begin experiencing some of the terrors that they're tempted to write. Maybe they have confessed, jokingly, to one of their writer friends that they have this weird idea that keeps nagging in the back of their minds that they really feel like writing a bizarre horror about a crazed koala. Stay with it, stay with the idea. Then as a joke, their friend gets them a toy koala for Christmas. And so we return to that image that I thought of at the beginning of someone tearing open this box with a soft toy koala in it and the googly eyes haunting them in the night. Only this is a well-respected, well-reputed writer, not an innocent child. Could you do something with this? Would you do something with this? Maybe this exquisite corpse is a reminder of the ideas that we, as potentially dazzling writers, should just not bother with. Okay, so now it's time for the new section I've introduced in 2026, where I take the story brainstorms to the next level and see if the possible meanings of a word combination can morph into even more unique ideas by applying different categories of interpretation. For now, I'll pick out 3 categories from the full list of 8 that I used in the last show, although this list is something I plan to develop and expand as time goes on, through experimentation and just things working out the way they tend to work out. Check the show notes if you'd like to see the full list of 8. Now, last time I just picked out 3 that jumped out at me at the time, but today I'm going to bring in the element of randomness, because that is so exquisite corpse. It's the way the original surrealists intended. So I have an 8-sided dice and an egg cup. People use egg cups, right, for rolling a dice? I haven't rolled a dice in a very long time, so I think this is right. I seem to remember doing this sometime in the 80s. Anyway, but first, let me choose a word combination. Today, we have had a terrible koala, a dazzling writer, an excited phoenix. I'm not going to mention the hedgehog. That was just ridiculous. Now, the word combination that seems to resonate most is from that first exquisite corpse, the expansive lantern. It feels like it's ripe for new ideas. Okay, so I have my numbered categories in front of me, same as last time, but let me roll the dice. 7. The category is an invention. Well, that makes sense for this, because that's sort of along the lines of what I was thinking anyway. My original idea was around people using clandestine crafts or skills to create weapons, or in this case, a form of interrogation. An expansive lantern throwing light on the truth and showing up a person's secrets. But now that we've got this category of invention, I feel like I need to think about, well, what would that actually look like and how would it work? A lantern, rather than a lamp or a light, is more likely something someone would carry around with them, I think. I imagine them holding it up as they walk along a dark alleyway. The flame flickers inside, casting odd shapes on the cobblestones. But is it the flame itself that is magical, or the glass that reflects the light, the glass refracts the light? Is this what I'm trying to say? I'm getting all my words mixed up. Anyway, but my point is, how does this thing work? What is it that makes the magic work, practically speaking? And this category of invention is making me feel like I need to dig deeper into, okay, how does this thing function? I mean, just visualizing how it works, I imagine shapes dancing with the shadows, maybe twirling them around or doing battle with them. And it feels like you're witnessing memories. Maybe the way it works is you set it down on the table in front of someone you're suspicious about. They'll have no idea why you've kept your lantern lit. So maybe it's best if you arrange the meeting in advance in somewhere that you know will be poorly lit as a good excuse. So they won't suspect anything, and you've just arrived from a dark street anyway, so why shouldn't you leave your lantern lit? And while it's on the table, you get them to talk about something, especially something you think they're lying about, and it absorbs their thoughts. It sort of soaks them up. The way that fire absorbs oxygen as it burns. So it could be the flame. And maybe it changes colour, or it turns slightly into a different colour, but hopefully not enough to give it away, to give away that there's something magical about it. I mean, that could be the risk of this invention, is the risk of someone finding out, working out what's going on. I think it's always helpful when you're creating any kind of magic system to find imperfections or flaws or risks so that it won't necessarily work out the way it should do. Will the protagonist manage to absorb the lies from this enemy? Will the lantern interpret it later accurately in a light display of moving figures in the pitch black of the alleyway? Or will it all go horribly wrong? It's interesting trying to sort of dig a bit deeper, even though it wasn't necessarily a new idea based on this word combination. It's a good way to just prompt you to see where else you could take it, or just imagine it in more detail. Just put more information in there. Okay, so I'm going to roll the dice again. 3. Okay, so that is a pub or cafe. The Expansive Lantern? Well, that's a weird title for anywhere that sells coffee or beer. Although it's mostly the expansive bit that's odd. You could have something sort of with the word lantern in it for a pub. The flickering lantern, now that would be quite eerie, but great if you have storytelling nights and you want to bring in the fantasy fans to gather around the fire. Actually, just the lantern would be a good pub name, but the Expansive Lantern? What can that mean? Unless this is to refer to the fact that the pub, called the Lantern, is expanding. It's having some building works done to extend into what was a large but rather plain-looking patio. So apologies for all the noise and all the banging, but really it's loudest when you're in the loos. You can ignore it otherwise. It's put off some of their usual clientele, but it'll all be worth it when it's done. It's going to look great. But what can we say that's intriguing and story-worthy about this extension? What if the extension is invisible from the outside? Now there's a party trick that could attract a lot of attention when it's done. What if the extension contains a portal into a castle that from the outside just isn't there? You push open a rustic door at the back and you find yourself at the top of a stairwell leading deep into the belly of a dungeon. What's that for? It's a bit scary for an extension. Well, maybe this is the ideal spot to relaunch the Lantern Storytelling Nights. Yeah, kind of works, maybe. So, okay, one last roll of the dice. What else? Okay. Oh, 3 again. Let's give that another go. 1. A book or magazine. The Expansive Lantern. I feel like I'm going back to my original interpretation of the truth being revealed, light in the shadow, and all of that. But this time, it's the light is expanding. The light of truth is expanding in the way of a journal or a blog. Again, something clandestine that's happening in a time of great political tensions. I do feel drawn once more to that original image I had of the lantern that's used for sly interrogations, absorbing and filtering out lies to refract the truth. See, I can pronounce it now. In a strange and flickering light display. So maybe this magazine, which is more of a secret pamphlet, is named after this weird invention as a nod to the uses it has in gathering vital information from the enemy, whoever that enemy may be. Interesting. So while these brainstorms brought up some different, quite distinctive ideas, although some of them were kind of more, they were like extensions on the same theme. Speaking of extensions, I am still quite partial to that pub with the invisible extension, especially with the steps into the belly of the castle, and especially if they have storytelling nights. I am there. But the other categories kind of just help me paint a clearer picture, or maybe just more pictures of this fantasy world that I was originally thinking about. There you have it, in a world that is obsessed with word count and getting down that first draft while it's fresh. This feels like proof that it's always worth giving brainstorms just that little bit extra, just to see where your idea can go. If you have a story idea, a story or a poem based on the expansive lantern, or any other word combinations that have come up on the show, please get in touch with me. 250 words is the limit, but it can be as short as a sentence or two if you write microfiction, or if you just want to sum up an idea or give us a glimpse of a story world. Now, I normally say at this point, go to my contact page, which of course you can, but I have at long last created a dedicated submit page at annatizard.com/submit. It's just better geared towards story and poem submissions. There are prompts to input your name, any website or social media handle you'd like me to quote, and you can describe the genre you normally write in. It all helps give listeners a better sense of who you are as a writer. Good for discoverability, yeah? Along the navigation bar at annatizard.com, the Submit tab is just underneath the Brainstorium tab. Or if you are on the Brainstorium page, just scroll underneath the embedded recordings of the show and you'll find a long black button that prompts you to submit. So get in touch. By the Friday after the release of this show, if you want to be included in the next one, but you can submit anytime and I can always just pass it on to the show after that. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstorium. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.